So how does a tax sale work in Mississippi? Make sure you watch this entire video because I'm going to teach you about the 2 different times the tax sales are held, how to figure out what time, whether it's April or August, that the sale is going to be held in the county that you want. I'm also going to talk about payment terms, which are unique in Mississippi that aren't offered anywhere else. So Mississippi does some really unique things. It's a great state to invest in. There's over 100,000 liens sold every year. So this will be your chance to get educated on tax liens in Mississippi. First thing to know is that Mississippi is a tax lien state, not a tax deed state. So what on earth does that mean? What that means is that you're buying a lien against the property, which can mature into a deed, which means can mature into ownership, but usually it's not going to. Usually what's going to happen is the person is going to redeem the property, the person being the former owner. Redeeming the property means they're going to pay the taxes plus pay the interest to you. And then they get to keep their property, and you get a big, fat, healthy interest rate in Mississippi of 18%, which is calculated at the rate of 1.5% per month. And that's a good return. And it can be fully secured by amazing real estate as long as you make sure that it is amazing real estate behind it. And that's the number one trick to know about all tax lien sales everywhere. Your lien is only as good as the real estate that is secured by that lien. So when you buy a lien, what's going to happen if the owner redeems it, meaning they pay off the taxes and they pay you your interest, you get all your money back plus interest? They're only going to do that if it's a valuable property. So sometimes in these tax lien sales, they're selling liens against useless pieces of property. What are those things? Often they're surveyor's mistake, where someone was subdividing a property, they put in a cul-de-sac, and the surveyor makes a mistake and ended up leaving a little tiny pie-shaped piece of land that isn't included to the deed to the left or the right of that little pie-shaped piece of land. You may have something that starts out an inch wide and ends up at 5 feet wide at the end of the property. That's not worth anything. Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to pay for it. No one's going to pay the taxes. No one's going to redeem it. And it's just going to sit there. So you'll have wasted your money on that tax lien. And then, that's just never going to get paid. So you want to make sure that anytime you're buying a tax lien, that you've investigated the property that is secured by that tax lien and make sure it's a good property. If it's something with a house on it, it's almost 100% chance that lien is going to be redeemed. And that means you're going to be paid. So for the most part, tax lien investing is a financial investment, meaning you're getting an interest rate. And the interest rates are really strong, like for example, in Mississippi, 18%, which is fantastic. Other states you might want to look at, Iowa's 24%, Maryland is 36%. So some crazy high interest rates, which is really great when you have capital to invest. It's fantastic. But it is not typically a way to acquire pieces of real estate. But occasionally, if you play your cards right, you are going to get some great pieces of real estate. And I want to explain it to you. First of all, you want to look and understand the situation. If you're hunting for real estate, understand the situation. The ones where you're most likely to have someone not redeem are abandoned properties. If you look at the house and it's abandoned, it's clearly been abandoned for a long time, there's a pretty good chance that that's not going to get redeemed because someone's left it. If, however, it's an occupied property, is looking pretty good, that's going to get redeemed almost certainly. So the first thing to know is, is it in an estate, for example? Did the owners die? The relatives are long gone to the wind, or there aren't any relatives? Those are ones where you're going to occasionally get a big bonus and get to keep the property. So let's get into a little more detail on Mississippi. So in Mississippi, the owner has 2 years to redeem the property. What that means, they have 2 years from the time you buy that tax lien to pay the taxes, pay the interest, which you're going to get, and keep their property. If they don't do it within 2 years, then you can apply to the Chancery Court and get a deed to the property, which could give you ownership for literally pennies on the dollar. These states where they structure it where you buy the lien and then if they don't redeem the lien, you get the property. Those are the ones where you get the properties the cheapest, and Mississippi is one of them. The reason you get them so cheap is people don't, they expect it to be redeemed. So they don't want to put in a big overbid, an overbid being extra money over and above the taxes that are owed. They don't want to do that. So you might be buying, a year's worth of taxes on your tax lien and then end up with a property. And when you end up with a property, you have some costs, but essentially it's just your taxes plus the following year's taxes And if you get the property, which is literally going to be pennies on the dollar because taxes average a little under 2% of the property value per year. So you're sitting there, your base taxes are only 4%. So you can really get properties uber cheap. These tax lien auctions are done at 2 different time periods depending on the county. Either it's going to be the first Monday in April or the last Monday in August, and it just varies by county. So you need to check with the county. Some are April, some are August sales. There are 82 counties that do the August sales, the rest of them do the April sales. And the lists of the liens being put up for sale are put out at least 30 days in advance of the sale, and you can generally get those from the county on their website or from the auctioneer. Very easy to get. Just do a Google search for whatever county you're looking to buy in, and such and such county tax lien sale, and you'll get to the websites that give you the list. Now, don't go to the commercial list providers. There's some people trying to sell lists out there. You can get the list for free from the auctioneer or the county. So go that way because that's also going to be the most accurate list, because you don't want to deal with lists that are inaccurate from some commercial provider where they're charging you for something you get yourself for free. Now, make sure that you check the website govease.com. And govease.com is an online auction site, and many of the auctions are now being done online. And a really unusual thing about Mississippi is they take credit cards in a lot of the auctions. And that is really unusual because most counties throughout America that sell tax deeds or tax liens absolutely do not take credit cards. So Mississippi is really appealing that way because for a lot of real estate investors, they may not have cash, but they have a credit card. So you could potentially buy properties on your credit card in Mississippi. So make sure you check that aspect out. And that's again by county basis. But many of the counties do take credit cards, which can really be a great way to finance your purchase as long as you're getting solid properties underneath. There's an enormous amount of opportunity in Mississippi because they sell over 100,000 liens per year each and every year. Over $7 billion worth of liens for sale. So as you might imagine, a good chance that you get some really good liens just because of the volume that's available. And also understand that you're going to have to do a lot of due diligence in any tax lien or tax deed bidding situation. You want to make sure that whatever property that you're buying a lien against is a solid property that you would be happy to get the deed at the end. Matter of fact, you'd be thrilled to get the deed at the end. So if you're not thrilled to get it, the owner may not be thrilled to redeem the property and pay those taxes and pay the interest. And you don't want, at the end of your process, a deed to a useless property. And as I said earlier, you'll get ones where it's strips of useless land and it's not worth anything. So make sure that you put eyes on every property where you're talking about buying the tax lien. You need to check it out, either yourself by driving by it or send someone else to drive by it. Now, your initial due diligence is not that. Initial due diligence, just look on the Google Maps, look on Google Street View, see what you can see about the property, and just screen out the ones you have no interest in. But you then need to go and do your further due diligence. And you're going to look through the GIS system, which is a government system where they essentially overlay the parcels on top of a map so you can see if it's a little useless strip of land that you're looking at. You want to make sure you look at that. And then once they get through that electronic screening, then you go to your next step, which is driving by the properties or having someone do it, because you do not want to invest your hard-earned money in a lien against a useless piece of property because it's not going to get redeemed. And if you get the deed, you'll wish you didn't have it. So make sure that you buy a lien against a solid property, which you can only know by doing your due diligence and checking it out. Also understand that tax liens have issues in them. And you need to educate yourself before you're putting out this money. So you should be doing a couple things. One, you should be getting some of the courses that teach you about tax lien investing. I'll give you an introduction to a guy at the end of this video where he is the master of this. He's the best guy to learn from. And you also need to have local legal help. And the way you're going to find your local legal help, very simple. Do a Google search looking for articles explaining how tax liens work in Mississippi, and look for articles written by Mississippi attorneys. Now, these men and women can't give you anything good for investment advice, but they give you great advice on the legal issues. Like, for example, how do I, get the deed at the end? What's that cost? And how much time does it take? Also things like, if there's someone on the property, how do I get rid of them? If it's a former owner, how do I evict them from the property? If it's tenant, how do I evict them? How do we deal with those issues? How do we deal with things like, overgrown grass liens and things like that? The local attorney will be able to help you with that. And the men and women, meaning attorneys that write articles on tax liens in their state, are people looking for that business, and they're going to know the business really well. But they only know the legal part of it. They don't know the investing part. And the investing part, you're going to learn from an expert. And my go-to expert, good friend of mine, who, when I have a question about the investing aspect in pretty much any state, because he's been doing it everywhere forever, he's been doing it since the 90s, I have a go-to expert, and I'll put a link down below for you where you can watch a 15-minute introductory interview I did with him, where he explains what he does and how he just does this amazing system that is far better than what anybody else is doing or teaching. He is the go-to guy to learn from. So your next step is to click on that video down below, go watch that 15-minute educational interview, and that's going to teach you how to get started in this world of tax lien and tax deed investing. And I'll also tell you, it is a great place to start. I started in this back in 1989. I bought my first property at a tax sale. I tripled my money on it. It was a fantastic start. It started me down a path of successful real estate investing, and this is a great place to start. It is absolutely the bargain bin of real estate. It's where you can buy the properties the cheapest, and if you know how to search and you're willing to do that effort, you can get absolutely the best deals in real estate through these tax lien sales, but you have to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to just lose money right and left. So make sure that you educate yourself first and then invest second. And the second thing I'll tell you, I know a lot of successful real estate investors. I've been coaching in real estate and investing in real estate since 1989 when I started. And the successful people educate themselves, and they're very diligent in checking things out, and they're patient. They wait till they find the right deal. They do not force the deal. If you find yourself trying to talk yourself into a deal, it's not a deal. Your answer to a deal should be, heck yeah, I want that property, or it should be, no, I'm not interested. It's not some in-between where you convince yourself that it's a good deal. If you're convincing yourself, you're making a mistake. So educate yourself through education through my buddy I'm going to introduce you to in the next video. Get connected with a local attorney, and then get out there and do it. And you'll be confident when you know what you're doing. So go learn what you're doing, and I look forward to hearing from you. Put comments down below. If you have any more questions, I'll get to them as best I can. Myself and my staff go through the questions. We answer as many as we can. I'd love to answer your questions, so put it down below, and I'll see what I can do with that. I'll get to it as quickly as I can. And in the meanwhile, I want to offer you my thanks for being here, and my wish is that you have a great and successful investing career. I started way back in 1989. It's given me a life that is really wonderful today, financially abundant, and this may be your start also. I hope that it is. So this is Attorney Bob Diamond. Go click on that video, watch my interview with my buddy, and I'll see you next time.